The story of DiNardo's demise is ultimately a tragic one. Before his mental illness took over, he was a straight-A student who, according to Philly Mag, won a scholarship to Arcadia University and wanted to become an orthodontist. Cosmo DiNardo is the kind of kid who would always say hello, and he would grab your groceries out of your hand and walk you to your car, one neighbor described. Another family friend said, "If my husband was digging in the yard, Cosmo would grab a shovel and dig alongside of him. If he saw me shopping, he would carry my packages inside for me. When it snowed, he would shovel my driveway." His mental health began to deteriorate in 2015. He and his girlfriend had ended their relationship, and his plans to join the Navy hadn't panned out. In 2016, he was diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, and he dropped out of Arcadia University when he was in his second semester of his freshman year. He grew even worse as he became incredibly paranoid after an ATV accident on the family farm. He was stuck under a vehicle and ended up with head injuries and ended up in a wheelchair. Hi friends, welcome to the channel. We have an interesting case for you with some hidden meaning, so push like and subscribe button to join the family. He stopped eating the food his mom made, claiming that she was trying to poison him. Doctors prescribed him antidepressants in response. When his mother tried driving him to Abington Memorial Hospital so he could admit himself for treatment, he bit her arm and punched her, giving her a black eye. He felt his mother was a Russian spy, and that his caste was bugged, the medical records stated. Although DiNardo's parents tried to help their son, many criticized them, pointing out the fact that the young man still had access to guns and dangerous farm equipment. When confessing to the police after he had taken the life of the 4 young men, Cosmo said, "I don't know why I did this, man. I threw my life away for nothing. My life is done, for nothing." He added, "I am just a happy-go-lucky guy." At the University of Pennsylvania, Christian Kohler specialized in evaluating and treating young people dealing with an initial onset of mental illness. He had been seeing Cosmo since November 2016 and was treating him for bipolar disorder, schizoactive disorder, and schizophrenia. He had him committed to a mental hospital, though Cosmo had been released, and was medicating him with antipsychotic drugs. For Cosmo and his mother, Sandra Fato DiNardo, the previous year had been harrowing. Cosmo had been behaving bad, going in and out of psychiatric facilities, and Sandra had lived in fear of another storm. Another violent psychotic episode in which Cosmo, amped up with manic superpower strength, would suddenly attack someone in the family. But according to a lawsuit recently filed in Common Pleas Court, Kohler, who through a lawyer declined to comment for this story, seemed to believe Cosmo's situation was improving. A month earlier, he'd declared that Cosmo's bipolar disorder was in full remission, and he'd reduced his medications. That day in the office, according to the suit, he completely stopped Cosmo's medications. Neither he nor Sandra DiNardo had any clue how dangerous Cosmo had become, or what he had already done. Just a day earlier, Cosmo had offered to sell 19-year-old Jimmy Patrick $8,000 worth of drugs. But after bringing Jimmy to the DiNardo's sprawling farm in New Hope, Cosmo shot him with a .22 rifle and buried the corpse in a grave that he dug with a backhoe. This was the frightening mindset of the young man Kohler would see that day. But the psychiatrist seemed unaware that he was dealing with a time bomb. In his notes, Kohler wrote that his patient posed no clear risk to self or others. So Cosmo walked out of Kohler's office and drove home with his mom. The very next day, July 7th, Cosmo and his cousin, 20-year-old Sean Kratz, lured 2 more young men to the DiNardo's farm, also under the pretense of selling them. But 19-year-old Dean Finocchiaro and 21-year-old Tom Mayo, who brought along a friend, 22-year-old Mark Sturgis, were walking into ambushes. What happened next made international news. Cosmo and his accomplice proceeded to shoot all 3 men, killing 2 of them instantly with a .357 handgun that Cosmo had stolen from his mother. When he ran out of ammo, Cosmo hopped on a backhoe and rolled over Mayo, who was still alive and screaming, crushing him to death. Instead of dissolving the bodies, however, Cosmo doused the 3 corpses in gasoline and set them on fire in an oil tank that had been converted into a pig roaster. DiNardo was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, robbery, and possession of instruments of crime in relation to the deaths of the 4 young men. The murders happened July 2017 on DiNardo's family's Bucks County farm. DiNardo had told the victims that he could sell them drugs, which is how he lured them to the 90-acre farm. Once he had them there, he shot and killed them. He worked with his cousin, Sean Kratz, who was also charged with first-degree murder. DiNardo and his cousin had burned the bodies in a pig roaster and then buried them. However, Patrick's body was buried separately. DiNardo was able to avoid the death penalty by revealing where Patrick's body was buried. The Lost Boys of Bucks County is about the murder of 4 men, but it's also about the tragedy of mental illness. DiNardo was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. He was seeing a psychiatrist named Christian Kohler, and he was previously committed to a mental institution in 2016. Even though he had a history of becoming violent with family members, Kohler said that his condition was improving, and he stopped administering his medication. DiNardo's parents believe the murders could have been prevented if their son had continued taking his medication, and they ended up filing a lawsuit against Kohler. DiNardo's mother stated, "My son wasn't this horrible animal that everybody says he was. He lost his life a year before those kids. He's a prisoner in his own brain. He's lost forever."